Black Mirror, Season 4, Episode 6, Black Museum. Welcome back to another Floppylegss YouTube video. Really appreciate you coming on through. We're here to talk about Black Museum, the final episode of Season 4. Yes, we're flying through it now. Season 1, 2, 3, and 4 completed after this video. Then we're moving over to 5 and finally 6. Of course, we did Season 7 when it first came out. All the videos are here for you to watch if you want to go check out my reviews for any Black Mirror episode. Wait to the end of this video to see what I rate this episode out of 10. Let's get into it. Spoiler warning ahead. Starting off with the story of Black Museum, we start off with an aerial shot of a car driving in a deserty area in America, and we later find out it's Nish, and she has arrived in this area to recharge her car because she's on a journey to see her mum and dad in America, and it's her dad's birthday. Really nice and lovely, but she stops over in this really run down area. You know, the gas station is empty, it's deserted. Luckily, she has a solar charging battery powered car, which is really cool. And then to the side of the gas station is a museum called Black Museum, made by Rolo Haynes. We don't know who that is until a few minutes later when she's standing outside the museum, and it says the first tour starts at 11 a.m. It's a bit odd. Why is there like a sign saying like wait outside? There's no one here, mate. There's no one here. We see Rolo Haynes come outside, a very mysterious figure in the middle of nowhere. Like Nish enters. She goes through all of the security things, and we realize I have watched this episode before. Just to add, there's a few in this season that I had never watched, but this one is one I have watched before. So we go through this museum, and we see all these different exhibits and artifacts. Like, you know, we're walking down the corridor, it's got the mannequins and like the knives and stuff, and the similar attire to the playtest mansion horror house that we saw in season 3. We go around and we see the killer bee from the Hated in the Nation episode. In this museum, we see the Archangel tablet that's destroyed after the antics that happened in that episode. We see White Bear, we see the killer on the screen, the woman, as well as, of course, the masked figure with the shotgun. It doesn't stop there. We see the crocodile bathtub, which was still too soon to see something like that and bring me back to where we left off. You also see, of course, the cloning machine with Tommy's lollipop from USS Callister as well, which is, again, what I really liked about this episode, and just this vibe and this idea that, you know, one, it's exaggerating the fact that this whole Black Mirror universe is interconnected in some way, shape or form, okay? It's all the same world. And also, it felt like this episode, it's kind of like the creators are kind of like, yeah, these were the stories that we left on the cutting room floor in the editing suite. Do you know what I mean? These were just like some side stories that I thought of. Charlie Brooker's like flexing on us, like, oh yeah, that story wasn't good enough for a full episode, but I'll just chuck them in here. And that's what I feel like this episode was. Of course, we see the first story of the machine on the head. It's the story about the doctor, Dawson, who was having a poor time in his work. His mortality rate was off the charts, and he got offered by Rolo Haynes this technology to implant a receiver into your back of your ear, behind your ear, a receiver, and if you put the sign, like the thing on the brain would connect their senses would go over to you, so what they feel pain wise you would feel. And as a doctor, he can use that to diagnose the issues that they have and therefore treat them. It progresses drastically as Dawson switches on the machine. He now doesn't just feel pain, he feels the people's pleasure as well. So when he's doing the deed, he's feeling it double time. You know, it's like Call of Duty Zombies. He's on double tap. He's loving life. But one day at work, he puts on the machine and he's feeling the pain of someone. He's trying to work out what the issue is, and then bang, they died, and he was unconscious for 5 minutes. He's dead. And Rolo Haynes is telling us that when you die, it's like a tsunami of your synapses going to the fullest degree. As he went back up, everything. He felt everything, you know, and that's, for an addict, it's like hitting a new high. His tolerance went too far, and that changed his progression. You know, what happened to him? He actually mixed the pleasure with the pain, and it became completely flipped on its head. So he starts relishing the opportunity to put the machine on for when there's a critical case within a patient, so he can feel that pain. Even when he's having intimate time with his partner at the time, you know, he wants to inflict a bit more pain than that so that he can feel that, so it's double, triple pleasure. You know, he's greedy at this point. No, he's addicted. Actually, it's quite sad what's happening here. And he actually goes to Rolo Haynes asking for help, you know, like, can we remove it, can we reduce it, how can we fix this? And Rolo Haynes very, very calmly, darkly just says, we're working on other stuff, mate. I did tell you it was a test. You know, I did tell you it was risky. There was some things that would be buggy. Like, damn, this is my life here. So Dawson gets left out. He gets kicked out of the ER, and he can't work in the hospital. He's at home. He starts taking out pain on himself, but that doesn't kick the pure pleasure, because it's not mixed among with the fear. You know, the patients are fearful for their death, where he's happy to harm himself in those places. So then of course he goes to the biggest degree. He goes out, finds a homeless person, and, you know, inflicts absolute horrific measures on them to feel everything again. And it was a cocktail of everything he could have wanted that no one in the world ever wants to happen. You know, torture, fear, pain, death, the full Monty. And he got arrested, but he's just stuck in a coma, because he's just got a smile on his face. He's completed it. He completed that machine. It's very weird. Again, I understand, like, they could have made that an episode. They genuinely could have made that an episode, but we move on. You know, we're still in the museum. You know, Roller Haynes, the AC's off, forgot to add. It's bloody hot in here. And he gets really thirsty, and then Nish says, here's my water. He downs the whole lot, which is a little bit odd, and I actually think is just another reference, like, about his character. He comes off very, like, dark and demeaning, and just very... I think he comes off very rude. I think he's a very disrespectful person, he comes across as. And, you know, he finishes her water, he does a lot of things like that, and then we find out later on that he is very horrible. But it progresses. Okay, we see another story. We see a toy monkey in a box artifact. Is it an exhibit or artifact? You know, I'm just answer that question. But we see this story here now. You know, a loving couple find each other at a party. They do the deed. They start seeing each other. They get pregnant. They have the baby. They're out at the park, lovey-dovey, taking a photo. Truck. You know, where's that come from? And now Carrie is in a coma, and Jack is left with his son and this pain of losing his partner. So Carrie is stuck in this, you know, coma, and there's actually another cool piece of technology that is used. He's able to communicate with her, because there's a technology that allows her to pick green for yes, red for no, you know, and there can be some responses. So, like, lo and behold, at St. Juniper, of course, another Easter egg to San Junipero. Another thing, I actually looked this one up. I'll be honest, I watched the video very quickly and I saw this one. Everything else I found, apart from this, the bloody rat that they did the tests on for Dawson's thing, the doctor's thing, was Kenny and Hector. You know, the characters from Shut Up and Dance, which I think is really cool, because they were just rats, like, playing the parts like they were their test dummies, like, hey, the troll. Anyway, moving on very quickly. Carrie is in the coma. Roller Haynes comes over and says, I can offer you the opportunity to try out a new thing we're experimenting with, this new technology that we can implant her consciousness that's still there into the rest of your brain. Okay, we only use like 40% of our brain capacity, so they're saying we can put it in the other side, and then she can seemingly live on through you. A beautiful concept, a beautiful idea. As we see, the logistics don't really work in the long run. Okay, it starts off beautifully. She can feel the apple, taste the apple, hug her son again. Lovely jubbly. We can see how much time has passed, because she hasn't seen her son in that amount of time, and he's now not a baby. He's a toddler and a half. Do you know what I mean? He's like 7 or 6 at that point. So she's very happy to be back, but things just get worse and worse and worse. And there's part of me in this part, and I'll talk about it more in the characters, but there's part of me that it's like, it could have worked out so much better if she didn't and he didn't try and act as if they could continue life normally. I think they went into that situation very blasé. You know, he brought it up, she says green, then we see him doing the thing. I'm sure there was a lot of thought process there, but really think about how big that was. You were literally signing away your life to take her on, and you were coexisting. You were no longer yourself, you were together. Do you know what I mean? I don't think they really had enough time to think about that. And this, I remember when I first watched it, absolutely killed me, this story, because I thought it was horrific. She's a bystander to her own life, because that is her own life at that point. She's now living through him, but she's a bystander to it. I mean, he's done a nice thing there to save her life. He didn't necessarily want to, because he's sacrificing his own, but he did it for his son. You know, checking someone out in the elevator, she's seeing that and sees it as maybe cheating. And that's what I didn't really kind of get. Again, we'll wait to characters to talk about that a bit more. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. He eventually comes to the agreement to put her on pause and bring her out for the weekend. She enjoys that, but we see it flash past that sequence there. She's looking out, admiring what she's seeing, her son growing up, but she's also so deep down knowing that she's missing out on everything. a weekend is only so much, and that's obviously like Be Right Back. At the end of the episode, we find out that the kid can only come up and see the clone on the weekends. You know, it's just like there's just this episode again, I think, was not just flexing the concepts, but I think flexing the stories that it can provide. You know, Charlie Brooker being like, yeah, these were left on the cutting room floor. Like, these weren't, in my opinion, this is Charlie Brooker speaking, he clearly was saying these episodes, in my opinion, weren't good enough to be solo episodes, so I'll chuck them in all into one. And they could have been, I think. We got 3 Black Mirror episodes in one. Do you know what I mean? And obviously it progresses where he starts seeing the neighbor. The neighbor is horrible. I'll get to that shortly. They go to Rolo Haynes, and Rolo Haynes says, we can implant the consciousness out of your brain into an inanimate object, being the monkey toy. She basically, in theory, reverses back to what she was when she was in the coma, and she only had the green and the red button. She just loses all of her. She basically went from having everything, having all autonomy, to losing all autonomy, to gaining some of that back, to reverting back. Do you know what I mean? She was just, yeah, reversed back. Oh, it's when the kid chucks the toy away. It's when the kid chucks the toy away, man, because it's so inevitable. It's so obvious that's going to happen. And then later down the line, you could think that the son would then value the toy, understanding it more. He would be able to be told what the actual logistics of it were. He'd probably treasure that for his life, and Carrie could live on somewhat happy being part of that life, being part of his life. And then she's tossed aside, and it's banned in all of the places in the world because of the fact that there weren't 5 emotions that she can pick from, and she's stuck in the exhibit, stuck on show in a museum where there's no one there anymore. And even when there was people there, like how can it be more humane to keep her alive? That's my question. And as the episode progresses, we're seeing them get sweatier and sweatier, really playing on the fact that that AC is down, and he's getting a little bit more choky coffee, again, due to the heat. But we later find out it wasn't just the heat that was causing that problem. He goes and shows the grand exhibit, the thing you've all been waiting for, and it's the reincarnation of a consciousness artificially in front of our eyes of Clayton, who was obviously seen in different places within the episode, within Dawson's and within Jack's story. You know, we saw on the news that a person attacked and unalived a news reporter. So Clayton got found for that. Basically, in a nutshell, it's pretty obvious that they're trying to tell us that Clayton didn't do the crime here. And there is definitely some, you know, racial conversation being had here. It's very clearly there's racial conversation being had when we see where the museum gets to and the customers they get entering the museum. But I think Rolo Haynes, he gave me off that vibe, man. All of that stuff. Again, we'll wait to characters to get into that. And this one was just horrific, because in this moment, you know, when Clayton agrees to it, he's manipulated. He's been told a misinterpretation of what this is going to be used for. And I think also at the same time, because that technology is so like wow, like crazy, I think there's part of him that doesn't necessarily believe it would be the fullest degree that it is, as in it's literally him. He says, am I a ghost? He is a ghost. Do you know what I mean? And one thing I actually thought was quite, so there's a lot of, you know, metaphors here. At the beginning of the episode, it's quite obvious. He says it's very hot in this museum. He says it's hot as hell in here. And this final story is basically Clayton and his wife says it to him as well, to some degree. He's basically sold his soul to the devil in this scenario, and the devil it is in Rolo Haynes. And you know, he allows paying customers to pull the electric chair switch for their entertainment. And like, again, I want to reiterate, the stories of Black Mirror are so effective, not just for the wild concepts, but because I can't sit here and say society wouldn't do that. I know for a fact there would be paying customers to go and do that. Now, they may believe that he did the crime. I'm just going to assume he didn't, because of how much is being told to us that he didn't. He's literally saying, check the DNA. Like a guilty person in that scenario wouldn't necessarily even bring that up, you know. So the fact that's part of it as well. But just the fact that even if he was guilty, why would you want to mimic that scenario where in front of you is a full-on fledged person, to your eyes, to your mind, a full-on fledged person feeling all the pain that would cause, and you're enjoying that for entertainment? You know, there's part of me that thinks everyone that walked into that museum and enjoyed that part of it, you know, took a little keychain home where that was also part of his consciousness going in, so he's forever in that pain. Yes, we saw the extreme version, you know, the racist rich billionaire people that came in to spend big bucks to do it. You know, you've got those people that are objective, like, oh, they're bad. Oh, of course they're terrible. Of course they're bad. No, every single person that ever pulled that switch every single person who ever pulled that switch, in my opinion, is a horrific person. Do you know what I mean? I don't care about the logistics of it. It's not technically a real person. Why are you getting enjoyment out of that? Obviously, then the story concludes where we find out that Nish is actually the daughter of Clayton, and she's coming back to get vengeance. You know, her mum protests. There was protests outside. The protests caused a lot of people to stop going to the Black Museum to see it and explore the exhibits. So he was running out of business. That's why he turned to such horrific people. And she obviously poisoned him and uploaded his consciousness into Clayton's uploaded artificial consciousness, which is, I think, was a little bit, you know, Russian doll, like inside the do you know what I mean? Like, what's real anymore? Has it plausible? But you know what, we'll take it. Black Museum doesn't necessarily have to always explain that fully for me to say it's a good or bad episode. I said that very early on in a review. You don't have to understand how something happens to take it in, and it is just a beautiful comeuppance to a horrible character, a brilliant written character, but a horrible person. And he ends up in the mind of the person that he has consistently seen pull that lever, show no empathy, show no care in any of it. When you really look through the whole episode, he's not once shown any empathy. It's just his personal gain he cares about this whole time. And she obviously gets the final laugh by having his keychain uploaded there, and that means he's forever going to be in that painful state that he left her father in. And the fact that her mother went to see him and then took her own life because of what she saw was horrible as well. But there is a slight, you know, redeemable aspect to it, as the fact that the mother uploaded her consciousness into Nish, which I actually found really, really like sweet, like in the sense of this technology was used in a positive way. We saw it be used in a negative way, but then again, is there a subtle dark note there where the same thing's going to happen to them? Or it hasn't happened yet, but it could happen in the future? I don't know. But overall, this story, you know, she burns down the Black Museum. I think there's like a slight undertoned message there, because the next Black Mirror season we see is in 2019. That's 2 years away. I don't know. It's burning the history of Black Mirror. You know, the USS Callister, Playtest, White Bear, loads of things like iconic episodes, iconic items and technology being burned. I don't know if there's like a bigger meaning there. Of course, it goes on to 5, 6, 7 seasons and it keeps the quality the same, and it's not too dissimilar to what we've seen in previous seasons. But why did they choose to burn it all down? Or is it just more significant that, you know, Nish destroyed his whole life's work and she had the last laugh? It's probably more that. Okay, very quickly, moving over to the concept. Straight off the bat, the pain receiver thing, absolutely incredible. The idea that it could be used in a way that could benefit patients and be used in such a practical way like that. The doctor literally saves the kid's life that was deemed an appendicitis, but it turns out to be a cancer or things like that. He's saving people's lives. Beautiful in that way. Then it goes the extra element of the pleasure being double pleasure, which I think is, again, a very cool idea, that of course if you're going to feel the pain, you should be able to feel the pleasure as well, and it goes that way. And then of course I like the fact that when things switched, it was something significant that caused it. It wasn't just a faulty bit of tech, it was the fact that he experienced death, so the technology never was designed to handle that, and that's where it switched on its head, where the pleasure became the pain and the pain was the pleasure, and then it went tenfold. I did really enjoy that concept. Again, I actually think that one on its own definitely could have been its own episode, 100%, because it's very unique. That concept hasn't been seen, whereas the second concept with Jack and Carrie, I think, has been seen to some degree, you know, not too dissimilar to maybe a Be Right Back vibe. There's many examples that you can give where there's like this idea that somebody's been lost, but you keep hold of them for too long, where it becomes negative. You know, you should be able to let people go in such a horrific way. Obviously, later down the line, we see it with common people as well. However, the idea of it playing out this way is brilliant. The fact that he's threatening her with anchovies because she's going to have to taste something that she really hates. All of this thing plays out really, really well in this episode. And then it goes that step further, where it is, you know, the pausing her in his mind, and it's been months, it's been weeks, it's been days, whatever it is, horrible. And then it goes that step further, putting her in an inanimate object where all she can do is say, monkey want a hug, monkey loves you. That's all she can say. And that, when the kid, I can't describe to you, when the kid throws the monkey, the position of it just there, and its only view is to see her ex move on, and she's stuck there. And then the final concept, I think this one probably is the weakest of the three. However, it's the most important for the story. Clayton being uploaded. It's very good, don't get me wrong, but I think it isn't as good as the previous two. I think the Dawson one is the best one, that concept. This one, I think, is probably one of the darkest, one of the worst uses of technology, one of the most horrific uses of that technology, because it's a living, sentient being. As much as an artificial replica of his consciousness, it is still him. He's feeling the pain and he's going through all of that. And it's the fact he was manipulated into it, thinking that, you know, A, he would have got away with the case, like the DNA would have proven him innocent, and then B, like, not knowing that that's what he would have used his consciousness for. He only did it to keep his family afloat, and then that ended up being the cause of his wife taking her life as well. But they got the last laugh, I guess, with Nish taking down Rolo Haynes completely. Speaking of Rolo Haynes, as I said, an absolute despicable character, despicable person. I did enjoy the fact that he had this previous life at St. Juniper's. Again, that being a link to San Junipero. I did enjoy that he wasn't just this crazy guy in the middle of nowhere that had this creepy museum. Ooh. No, he was a previous person that was actually quite high up in a very prestigious like tech field. Do you know what I mean? Trialing new things, like the things that we're seeing was coming from his mind or his people, so that made sense why he would delve into these other technologies, these other things for this museum, like the things I've mentioned, like the USS Canister cloning machine, etc. I'm very intrigued how he acquired such artifacts and exhibits, especially like the Archangel tablet, things like that. I'm very, very, I don't think it's meant to be questioned. I think it's supposed to be just a cool callback to so many things. But Rolo Haynes, as I said, I do get the vibe that he was probably a despicable bigot, a horrible individual whose only care in life was about himself. And that kind of summarized it perfectly with him being in the middle of nowhere. You know, that museum was popular at one point, but he chose to put it in the middle of nowhere. He didn't necessarily want to be near civilization to some degree, you know, because all he cared about was himself. It was just about him. I think Letitia Wright plays a good role in this. You know, she's British, she's actually British, and then she's, oh, psych, I'm American, because of course she can do the American accent. It is funny, like, you know, in Marvel Cinematic Universe, she plays Shuri, she's very tech savvy. All of a sudden here, she just sits down and she knows how to upload his consciousness perfectly. But yeah, sure, I enjoyed her character. Again, I don't think this episode was fully about the characters. I guess there was so many like good, here's a decent character, here's a decent character, here's a decent character, so it made it more fully fledged. I did enjoy the twist when I first saw it. Of course I did know it was coming in this time around, but it still lands, and it's still one of the more uplifting endings. As much as it's a very heavy, sorrowful episode, it does end with a smile on your face, thinking, yeah, he got his comeuppance. You've freed your father from that torment, and you've done it for your mum as well. Do you know what I mean? That, and you've saved Carrie as well. Talking about Carrie and Jack, I felt really bad for these two because it was a lose-lose situation. And what I was going to say earlier on, I thought Carrie in that sense is like, you've got to let go of so many things, I think, if you're Carrie. But also, she was unaware that she was going to have to let go of those things, I think, as well as Jack. They didn't know they had to fully, because they didn't really think about what they were getting themselves into. But really think about it. You can't get angry at him for moving on or trying to see someone else or date someone else. You can't do that because he's still got his life. But she still thinks she's living her life through him fully, where she's not. You've got to rein it. You've got to lose some aspects of that. Dawson probably wasn't the best character, but the concept made him a great character because we saw that twist in him. And the concept really took control of him, the technology. But yeah, decent characters throughout. Rolo Haynes and Nish, though, as two characters, I think held it down very well. Then finally, the twist, as I mentioned, of course, it is the fact that Nish was the daughter of Clayton, who was the big exhibit at this museum. She knew all along it was there. Her mum had protests outside the museum to prevent it from going on for years, it would seem. She grew up with that knowledge, and then she was able to grow up with the knowledge of the technology to have the final laugh. She gets the comeuppance, poisons Rolo, and then gets the very poetic moment of making him experience what he made her father's consciousness experience for years. Again, a very, very poignant moment in the episode. So yeah, I did enjoy that twist, and I think just the twists of each concept. You know, we saw 3 concept twists in the episode, which was unreal. As I said, it felt like an episode for Charlie Brooker to say, yeah, it's the season finale of season 4. Let me flex on you lot. Sorry, if you can hear a fox screaming outside, that's a fox. I'm recording one late at night for once, but there's a fox screaming outside. Can you hear that? Make a flipping technology, Charlie Brooker, to eliminate fox sounds. So yeah, it really felt like Charlie Brooker was flexing on us, saying, yeah, these were stories that I didn't even use. Let me do 3 more seasons after this as well, and probably do 8, 9, 10, 11. I've got so many ideas up here. That's what he's just flexing on us. It is a great episode, and it is just really cool just to see the callbacks to all of the other episodes in it as well. For me, I rated this episode, what you've been waiting for, I rated this episode an 8.5 out of 10. I didn't go a bit higher than that just because I thought, you know, I don't think I can give it a bit higher than that, because I didn't feel fully what I have felt for other episodes, but that's probably because there wasn't that, you know, 50 minutes dedicated to one story, whereas it felt like there was, you know, multiple stories. But it was a very enjoyable watch, and I'm sure everyone would rate this one highly. If you don't rate this one highly, please do let me know, because I'd actually be very shocked, because I think it is just the lowest minimum is a 7.5 and the highest I'd get, it could be a 9. Do you know what I mean? It is in that realm for sure. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think about Black Museum? I just want to add as well that, of course, there's the 15 million merits graphic novel that he's reading as well. Obviously they had their little argument there, but another really cool callback, and it just makes you question, what is this world like? Is that to imply that it wasn't real and like we saw a graphic novel in that episode? Maybe I'll do an Easter egg video or a theories video very soon. Let me know what you think about this one though in the comments down below. We're going to move over to season 5 tomorrow. Thank you for coming through. I've been Floppyleggs, and I'll see ya when I see ya.